And now we get an understanding of why our workers posted on foreign posts internationally are really at their wits' end, because we've heard reports that people sitting on the other side actually don't know what to do, are unable to do their jobs because of this incomplete legislation.
Well, not only is the legislation incomplete, and it is physically incomplete, pieces of the puzzle as we speak are missing, but one would have thought that before bringing in an immigration regime that is totally different, it constitutes a paradigm shift from where we were prior to the 26th of May for many years. An immigration system came into operation on the 7th or 8th of April 2003. And since then, we've had a system that has been chugging along, working. It had flexibilities, it had its problems, it was working. What the previous Minister of Home Affairs and her advisors decided to do was to change our immigration system to make it very difficult for foreigners to become immigrants into this country. In other words, to close the borders substantively. And what they managed to do was to send a signal to the rest of the world that South Africa is closed for business. Now, of course, economists are complaining that South Africa is in a recession. These rules exacerbate our closure to foreign direct investment by foreigners who want to make a difference in this country. And that's where the impact is going to be felt more and more.
Now, you've called these changes to our immigration law almost a new immigration regime. Can you very briefly talk us through the significant changes?
Sure. Well, there are a number. I mentioned just now that the previous system chugged along and it had its flexibilities. Every immigration system needs to be flexible because of the circumstances of each foreign person trying to come into the country. Sometimes it can't be a cookie-cutter approach. All foreigners are differently situated. They all have their own foibles and different ways of living and making their business. And therefore, an immigration system of any kind has to be flexible enough to accommodate those differences. This system here is like a tortoiseshell. It's absolutely inflexible. One example, let me just take an instance. In the previous system, a foreigner could remain in South Africa and apply within 30 days of the expiry of their current permit. If there was a good reason for it, good cause, that's all. Hello, my mother was ill. I went with her to the doctor. I couldn't apply within 30 days. 5 days to go before my current permit expires. May I file it now? There's a good reason for it. That's what I mean by the type of flexibility that was inherent in the previous system. In the system, if a foreigner, for whatever reason, knocked over by a truck, does not file that application prior to 60 days of the expiry of the current permit, they cannot file the application under any circumstances. They'd have to go back home to file the application. Whether that is a parent of young children, a spouse of a South African, the owner and operator of a large business and employer of many people, they'd simply have to go away to apply from abroad. That's extremely disruptive because they may be at the Department of Home Affairs on the 59th day and not prior to the 60th day. When I mean there's no flexibility, that's an example. Many foreigners enter South Africa, have a look round, and decide, hey, I'm going to apply for my business permit while I'm in South Africa. Or a work permit. They get, through an interview, they get a job offer. So they say, fine, and the employer says, look, we'll give you 2 months to get your work permit, file your work permit application. A visitor permit holder cannot apply in this country anymore, except under prescribed exceptional circumstances. A foreigner married to a South African, let's say they're married for 5 years. The wife comes down here from France with a visitor permit, and she says, I'd like to apply for a permit based on my spousal relationship. The law does not allow her to do that. She would have to go back to France, go to the South African embassy in Paris and file her application from there. She may well have children here. Her husband may be working here. It would divide the family. She'd have to go back to Paris and put up with all the shenanigans and the confusion at the South African embassy in Paris to do that. These are just some of the differences which make all the difference in the world between an efficient system of law and an inefficient system of law which can't operate in the scheme of reality.